Hello everyone. Today we have another new guest. He is Mr. Ting, and he is from Access of the Blockchain. Yeah, last 7 years he is working on blockchain technology, and he has a very good group of people. And he is doing global business on blockchain arena and cryptocurrency and these things. And we will know about the details and understand. We can get a very good understanding from his guidelines and from his advice and from his analysis. So, hello, Mr. Aaron, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Sharif. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Can you please introduce yourself and your last 7 years of your experience, how you do work with blockchains and different things you getting involved in?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I started in blockchain 7 years ago as a miner. So I learned this very interesting about this very interesting digital currency called Bitcoin, and it was about half a year where I keep seeing this news, but I only really delved into it after 6 months. And after I found out that the model is to replicate a natural resource like gold, so I got interested and I bought my first miner. But since then, with this hobby of mine has progressed to more of an industry. And what we've done is over the last 3 years, we managed to build up an association. And this association is the Industry Association for Cryptocurrency and Blockchain. And we liaise with government, our one of the agency under the Prime Minister's office, which is called MIND. It's a science agency, and also central bank, Securities Commission, law enforcement, cybersecurity, and other tech um, digital agencies under the Malaysian government. So the name Access actually came from Singapore. So in Singapore, there's an association called Association of Cryptocurrency Entrepreneur Startup Singapore. So it's called Access Singapore, and Access reached out to us, and they wanted to have a cross-country collaboration, and we thought it was a fantastic idea. So that's the reason why we share the same name, although we're totally different organization. But we do have some collaboration on the international level. For example, IDEXA, which is started by Anson, the chairman of Access Singapore. And IDEXA is an international exchange association, and it's meant to engage with regulators in the US, on the global level about the worldwide regulation.
Mhm. Very interesting. And I just want to know the inside of Malaysia, like Asia Pacific market, the how actually blockchain technology involved right now with different industry. Cryptocurrency, what's the future you are observing right now, specifically the Asia Pacific market, as you have international access. How do you feel? How do you think about this industry?
Well, there are several parts to this industry. So mainly it's the blockchain industry, which means enterprise blockchain. Mainly, that's what it's referred to. So large companies, corporate companies, we actually try to use the blockchain technology in order to bring more efficiency, more transparency, and lower costs in their business. So in that respect, there are a lot of companies looking at this sector for the supply chain, but it's not as well known, right? Whereas you have also cryptocurrency, which is the first application of blockchain technically through Bitcoin. And in the financial sector, there's been a whole host of innovation. So right now, the innovation, in fact, is already being noticed by central banks around the world. So you have, for example, Singapore, which has undertaken Project Ubin, and um, they've undertaken proof of concept. Now I think it's in the fifth or sixth stage, and they finally announced that they're ready to roll out central bank digital currency. But of course, there's three segments in that. So you'll be looking at either interbank settlement, retail payments, or cross-border payments. So yeah, so mainly these are the two areas. But we also have the so-called decentralized public blockchain world. So in the decentralized public blockchain world, there's several languages that actually hold a large influence. So for example, Ethereum. So Ethereum as a public blockchain is very popular. There's a lot of dApps. There's a huge development community there. But there's also other public blockchains. and a lot of them, adopt the code of Solidity. Now, so in terms of actual implementation, I think we have to look back, maybe towards 2017, when there was all this hype surrounding the industry. So at that time, it was more ideas, it was more white paper, and of course, some of you may have heard of the ICO craze, which is an initial coin offering. So technically, people raise money as they would in a IPO, but except that they would swap tokens, right? So I'll take your Ethereum or Bitcoin, and I'll give you the token of my project. But unfortunately, at that time, a lot of them were just ideas, and a lot of that money was taken by enterprises that did not deliver. But the failure rate is high, but I would equate that to something like a early stage investment, VC investment, where it's high risk anyway. Now, the over the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of progress in terms of actual development. So right now, we're looking at a situation where most of the, how do you say, the technologies are a little bit more mature, and especially in the various niches around, right? So there are huge companies, corporate companies, and I believe I saw a study, and the study shows that 75% of the Nasdaq and listed company in the US, they've already taken a look at blockchain technology. So definitely, I think I can consider it mainstream. And not only that, in terms of blockchain jobs, out here in Asia, it's still not too much. So basically, in blockchain, we have like I would say possibly like three major regions. So the first one would be the US, um, and the second one would be Europe, and the third one is like largely Asia, plus including China and Japan, right? So it's the entire Asia. So in these three sort of regions, I would say like US and Europe is probably generating more jobs, but over here in Asia, it's quite active as well. But the number of jobs in the enterprise blockchain is not as much as the number of jobs in the public blockchain, and that comes with a really specific reason as well, because over in Asia, for example, Singapore has a very friendly jurisdiction for blockchain projects. So during the IPO craze, a lot of the companies from other jurisdictions, they decided to move over to Singapore. Yeah. So it's pretty active. There's a lot of projects out there. I think it's quite difficult. The challenge would be to actually keep track of all these projects. And there's a lot of code out there. As you know, it's open source. So it's quite easy for people to, if you want to do something. I think the easiest way would be to research what's out there already, and see whether they can take what's out there and develop it further.
Very interesting. Can you please explain me about your organizations and what's the memorable things you want to share with us about your organization growth and these things?
Sure. So when we started as a community, more like the community getting together and starting an association. So it wasn't really like an industry association at that point. So we had a lot of individual members, people who are in the community, and they wanted to make sure that the authorities have a right understanding of cryptocurrency and blockchain, and they would actually implement, sort of like a framework that will allow our industry to thrive. But again, so the at the point, the authorities were really looking at it in terms of like, is this technology like legit? Is it gonna cause more harm than good? Those are like fundamental questions. And we also had like a large number of scams. So that was really tough. But we managed to convince the authority that, look, this technology has potential. And after that, they started to put in regulation. So obviously, we had a hand in giving our input from our side. And now we have three licensed exchange, crypto exchange, Luno, Tokenized, and Synergy. All three are our members. And right now, we're continuing that discussion with the Security Commission. I believe the next thing they're looking at is a wallet regulation. So we'll be discussing with that with them soon. So what actually happened is it turns out that as the community became, I mean, as the hobby industry, became an industry, it was like the composition of the association. I expected to change as well, and in fact, today we have our president of Access is actually working for the Securities Commission, so that gives us a really good like a base relationship with Securities Commission. We're 100% transparent. We also have another colleague of ours who actually works for a state-owned company, a subsidiary of a state-owned company, and they are undertaking a project called Blockchain Village Medini, and that's located in the new city of Iskandar in the south of Johor, and just across the border from Singapore. So yeah, so we're not government; we're still an industry association, but we have a open door policy and policy to be 100% transparent. So that's where we're at right now, and I believe with what we have, we can also be involved in the next stage, which is where I believe the government is looking at something like to establish something like a blockchain blueprint, blockchain industry blueprint. So we hope to be involved in that, and we also hope to be involved in promoting our blockchain industry in Malaysia to the industry worldwide.
Yes, I just want to know in present pandemic situations, can you share like how actually Malaysia present situations they handle these COVID-19 things, and most importantly, how actually blockchain technology and this kind of cryptocurrency can be helpful for different industry.
Sure. So looking at the COVID problem, we had a lockdown since March, mid of March, as you know, and we have several stages. And right now we're in the sixth stage, where it's a little bit more liberal, and they're the way the authorities are controlling is by just monitoring, and wherever there's cases in an area, then they would actually look at whether to change the policy for that particular area. So it's much more targeted than the blanket kind of like order that we had in the beginning. So I think it's good in a way because I see people out there moving around, but obviously the economy has taken a hit. And during the COVID, we also had a very big issue with illegal immigrants. And the reason why is because here in Malaysia, our population is only 30 million plus, but we have somewhere around 3 to 4 million estimated illegal immigrants. And it was a problem because the authorities wanted to basically make sure that they were taking care of their health, to be cautious against COVID and take the precautions and, of course, follow government orders. But it became very difficult because a lot of them were undocumented, and a lot of them actually went into hiding. So when you talk about technology, I believe this is something that we can potentially have. I believe that it is very easy to deploy an app. It can be a blockchain app. It can have a wallet in it. I mean, we can have some collaboration with a licensed e-wallet provider. But that app would make sure that everyone is monitoring their health. They can do regular check-ins through the app, and yeah, and it's one of the things that actually has been carried out in Singapore, surprisingly by Maybank, which is a Malaysian bank, but they've undertaken this proof of concept in a foreign worker dormitory, right? And at that point in time, I believe it was more towards solving like a payments issue because the dormitory workers they had to keep cash on them, and it's not always safe. So they started implementing this payment system where everyone would have instead of cash, they would have e-wallet, and the merchants inside the dormitory would be able to accept this digital currency, right? But of course, you can add so many things to it. But I think that's one of the way that we can help, and not only in terms of just like payment, and we can also solve one of the main problems with undocumented migrants, and that is with identity, right? We need to know who they are. So if we can't, sort of identify them legally, then at least we can have, some sort of identification, either by, the their account number or something, or they can give more details if they're comfortable with that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we can solve.
Very interesting. So, when you give the solution through blockchain technology, you have to be very innovative, and your team must need to be very innovative for solving the problems and other things. Actually, how actually you focus on this innovative part, and how actually your team work on that. Can you give me some examples or some experience from your industry?
Yeah, sure. So the choice of I think when it comes to rolling out a solution, the choice of platform is very important, and it's the first thing you should look at. So, for example, if you're looking at payments, there's actually a Hyperledger framework called Iroha. So Iroha was created by a Japanese company called Soramitsu, and Iroha is very focused on payments. Iroha also rolled out a solution for the Central Bank of Cambodia called Project Bakong. So since last year, July, they've been operating, and this is a central bank issued digital currency, right? So if you're looking at payments, you would probably do your research and probably consider Iroha as one of the potential. So it really depends on application. If you're looking for, let's see, a very like general smart contract play where you don't expect to interact with real world currencies, then maybe you look at Ethereum. But of course, Ethereum also comes with drawbacks. So, for example, transaction costs is a little bit crazy right now. You can pay something like $4 for a transaction. So can you imagine if you just want to send $2 to your friend and you're paying $4? So it doesn't work. But then again, there's other Ethereum clones or even other types of blockchain that has a zero transaction fee model, right? So and for developers, we actually have quite a number of talent in Malaysia. The thing is, we cannot quantify how many people are actually working in this particular sector because it is decentralized. They can work anonymously or pseudo anonymously. But in terms of talent, we definitely have it. We do have Malaysian companies that has a very large presence in the blockchain space. For example, Etherscan and CoinGecko. But then again, it's like yeah, most of them, even some of the Malaysian companies, they would register a Singapore entity or in other jurisdiction like Estonia or even Switzerland to undertake the business. So this is where I think a lot of people. I think this is the reason why a lot of people feel that Malaysia is not on par with other countries. But if you really take a look at what we've done from the regulation point of view, like from even the industry point of view, the kind of like talent that we have here, I don't think we're that far behind as people think.
Very interesting. I just want to know, at present situations, in pandemic situation, many people actually lose their job, many economical challenges, many countries actually facing right now. How actually this kind of innovative technology help to grow business, and more people can engage, especially young people can engage with your community, and they can build up business, or economically they get solution.
That's a very very interesting idea. I mean, like question. So the people in this space, I mean, there is quite a number of projects out there that really want to, look at, all the problems in the world, right, and try to find like a creative solution, right? Because I mean, we do have a system. It has been working. We do have central banks, fiat currencies, and whatnot. We do have, you know, um, considerations for international politics. We do have, securities law. We have a lot of things, right? But blockchain is one area where it opens up a lot of possibility. And the main innovation of blockchain, of course, is value transfer. But more than that, it allows us to build on a decentralized manner. Um, Technically, we can build companies on top of it. So what do I mean by that? Right. So of course, the when Bitcoin came out, it was just a transfer of value. Then Vitalik Buterin came out of Ethereum, and he allowed smart contract, so you can technically put a contract that's immutable that will execute as it is programmed. um, in most cases anyway. So with that area, with that idea, came the idea of a DAO. So it's a decentralized autonomous organization. So with the idea of decentralized autonomous organization, you can actually create a structure where you have a governance over a particular project. So this is a really interesting idea, right? And for example, one of the project that I really closely follow is called Sora. So Sora actually implemented an idea where the crypto economy should be governed by a central bank, right? And this central bank will actually have the ability to, for example, manage a monetary policy. So they had this really interesting thing called bonded curve. So bonded curve is basically just for example, just like a central bank guidance, right? For example, the country is Singapore. They say, oh, because of our situation, because we're importing most of our products from overseas, we like to ensure that we keep inflation under control. And how we do that is to ensure that the Singapore dollar remains strong, so that the inflation is controlled. So this was their policy, right? So the Central Bank of Singapore would work towards achieving this aim. So can you imagine now in cryptocurrency, we actually have a program that can replicate that for you, you know? And not only that, they also integrated with PokerSwap, which is a decentralized exchange that's coming up. And with PokerSwap integration, they can actually be involved in the market to buy and sell, right? So that's just one example. So what I'm saying is that anything that you see out here in the tech world, either it's Facebook or is it Uber or or Twitter, anything, you know. I mean, all of that can be decentralized. Yeah, and today I can say comfortably say the technology has arrived. There's a lot of third generation blockchains that can do 20, 30,000 transactions per second. And we do have a larger community, so there's more capacity within the industry to build it. So, so I think if for some of the people out there in the world, right? So we don't choose where we're born. So some people are fortunate to be born in a first world country, but some are born in a third world country. But those who are in the third world country, as long as they have access to a computer or mobile phone and the internet, they can be involved in this so-called decentralized economy. And the other valuable thing about this decentralized economy is that um, these some a lot of the projects they actually have a policy where they drop tokens or you can do some job in order to exchange for the token. And these tokens are actually worth money in the sense that you can convert it to Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you can convert from Bitcoin to Ethereum to a local currency. So there was a very funny, fascinating story in Venezuela. So as you know, Venezuela, along with a few other countries now, have a failed economy, and it got so bad to a point where someone mining cryptocurrency was actually making more than a doctor in Venezuela. Yeah, and there was even a story of someone who wrote, "It's like I started this thing as a hobby. Now I did not realize that how important it would be." But just because I was mining Ethereum and I got a bunch of money, I was able to have enough money to bring my family out of Venezuela. Right. So so centralized systems obviously fail at some point, and the way that the world is being managed, especially if you look at how central banks control monetary supply, you have a boom and bust period, and and there's the economist called Professor Richard Werner. So he was the first guy who identified quantitative easing, and was later used, of course, in the U.S. as we all know in 2008. But what it is really how much influence, how much impact that central banks and the World Bank actually have over the world economy, and why after like 100 years or more than 100 years we still have the same issues, right? And why some countries are poorer than others, and why should someone doing the exact same job, but just because you're in a different country you're getting different value or maybe vastly different value from what you would get if you were in a better country. So I believe cryptocurrency and decentralization and all this new system with and nowadays the one of the hot keywords are DeFi, which is decentralized finance. So it's really fantastic, right? Because for example, if you're in a country where you don't really have access to financial services for whatever reason, okay, you don't need much, right, to actually I mean there's of course the technology barrier, but if you can get over that, you don't really need much to have access to what the other people in the first world country have. So decentralized, so finance business is mainly borrowing and lending and some investments, and of course you can create very there's derivatives, you can create very complicated products on top of it. So what I'm saying now is like someone in a I don't know like African country or but anywhere where it's underdeveloped, right? They can actually have access to all this, even if the country doesn't have a stock market, even if the country's banking system is weak. So I think that's how we can change the world. Um, in a sense that I hope to see that the world, how do you say, the world have a backup to this so-called centralized system that we built over time. Because this system, we have winners, we have losers, and unfortunately, some of the losers, you're born a loser, and it's very difficult to become a winner because over time it gets more entrenched, right? So those who are rich, they get richer. That tends to be the rule for it's simple rule, but it's because of many reasons. And those who don't have that, they just focus on survival. So there's no, I say, opportunity for them to realize their talent. Maybe they're very talented pianists, but because they're born in a poor family, they don't have this chance to even touch a piano. So so I think the world needs a backup, and that backup is blockchain, is cryptocurrency, is DeFi, and all sorts of decentralized business that we're going to build. And it makes sense right now that the trend is DeFi for the simple reason that if you want to support any country's economy, you need to start from your financial system. You need to have a developed financial system in order to have a real economy. So I hope DeFi would start building and possibly have an even better model than what we have in the real world. And once we have that, hopefully we will see more businesses emerge and more people that can directly interact with this economy, which is totally open, is unrestricted. Interact with this economy and earn a living. Yeah. So I think that would be the ideal situation for someone in our industry.
Yes, very interesting. I want to know more. Let's say last 7 years you are working with a very good community. You have experience in Singapore and Malaysia, and many startup actually growing their business in cryptocurrency and this industry, in blockchain industry. So I want to know more about the Malaysian ecosystem on startup, Malaysia, Singapore, how actually their ecosystem actually working right now, and how different startup get benefit from this ecosystem.
Sure. I'll say that our most of our work has been through half of our work is probably through regulation, and the other half is towards attracting companies to come here to set up and also develop local talent. So in that sense, it's been quite organic, I have to say, because I'm involved in both sides, right? So open decentralized blockchain and also enterprise blockchain. So I believe I have a slightly more balanced view of what's going on. If you look at enterprise blockchain, there isn't that much, and the reason is majority of these large corporate companies, their innovation staff, they're based in Singapore. So even though they're Malaysians, but they're working in Singapore, so that innovation is seen to be as something foreign rather than internal. So for our industry to develop, we need to finalize our blockchain blueprint. That's essential, and we also need to wait until this COVID is over so we can continue with our program with the blockchain village. And I believe there's another friend of mine who's setting up a incubator accelerator in Kuala Lumpur. So hopefully he makes the announcement soon. So there's still a lot of effort, but it's slightly delayed by COVID. And but I believe we have a lot of potential. So our positioning in Malaysia is very clear, okay, and it's very simple, and it makes sense. Singapore would remain the hub for the simple reason that they have a friendlier regulation. and a lot of companies are already in there. And you're talking about a lot of money, maybe possibly to the tune of more than 50 billion. And Singapore, we don't encourage Singaporean companies to sort of like move the entire setup here because of the legal issues. So it is much easier for us to attract them by saying that, hey, look, we're just across the border. We have a friendly, a solid framework for companies to put their operations base, and that way we can attract them in. We can give them incentives, and we can build the so-called local talent up. So this is the plan for Malaysia, and I hope to by next year I hope to give you a positive update on what we're doing here.
Mhm. No, this is very inspirational like example I get from your community. Beside that, one thing like example, many international community they want to know as you are involved with financial solution. Many international community actually ask me even different show they want to know more about Islamic finance and this kind of things, how actually Malaysia involved with Islamic finance and these things. Can you give us some detailed explanations about the Islamic finance, how it works in Malaysia, or is there any interrelation in between like blockchain and Islamic finance and these things?
Oh, for sure, yeah, of course. Malaysia is, I believe, Malaysia and Dubai are probably the two largest jurisdiction for Islamic finance, and a lot of that adoption in Malaysia actually has to do with the local banks, which is really supportive of Islamic finance, pushing out products. So that's why we have a very large adoption here. Now, when it comes to cryptocurrency, you have to understand that there was quite a long debate, which I believe is still going, that whether this is Sharia compliant or halal. So that took up actually quite a bit of time. But as I remember, it is not as simple as it's a yes or no answer, because in the Islamic world, I was made to understand there's maybe three or four sort of like authorities that give their opinion, and out of four, I think one of them support. I don't know what's the situation right now, but that was the situation like 2 3 years ago. But that's for cryptocurrency, not for Islamic finance. Now, for Islamic finance, I believe there's a great opportunity to incorporate blockchain, because blockchain is a technology. It is neutral. You can use it, and I believe it can also fulfill one of Islam's principles, right? That it should be fair. It should be transparent. It should be open. So for this, I believe I haven't heard of any Malaysian banks, Islamic banks, that's how to say, rolling out any proof of concept yet. But certainly in Dubai, you will see a lot of innovation, because Dubai government, they are very, I worked in Dubai before, so I understand how they work, and I really admire them in their approach. So once they decide on something, they'll do it, and that's it. So in actually this 2020 was quite a disappointment, because Dubai had very big plans for 2020, and we were supposed to have a big blockchain summit in Dubai in April. So all that is, of course, no longer no longer in the plan. But once this COVID thing blows over, I believe you'll see some news from the Dubai side, especially from the Islamic banking side.
Very interesting. I want to know that Malaysian has a very large amount of youth, young populations, and those who are trying to contributing for the economy. And government has also a lot of initiative for developing this youth, especially for their skill-based development, knowledge-based development, and many interesting things happening in Cyber Jaya and many interesting places. Can you share your experience about this knowledge hub with our global community, because many people also interest on that particular
Ah,
point?
okay, okay,
Yes.
sure. So of course, I'm okay. So I'm more familiar with Johor, because I'm involved with, quite closely with this blockchain village Medini. So one of the collaborators for blockchain village Medini is an entity called Skills Johor. So Skills Johor is an entity that, of course, subsidizes employers to train their staff. So they give training grants, and also they encourage foreign companies to take local workforce. Right. So this is something that's available. But at the same time, for our international friends, I believe Malaysia needs more talent, more experienced talent, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the things that we lack here is actually a strong ecosystem of
Mhm.
skilled workers, right? And of course, you can go for all the courses you want, but the real learning actually happens, in the company on the job. So we need more, we need more of everything. We need, more foreign talent to come in. We have something called a nomad visa. So if you can qualify, then it's something that you can go for. It's quite friendly. And Iskandar, I think we have a special tax scheme as well for some companies that wants to set up here. So Malaysian tax is about 26%, but under this regime, it's only like 15%. And you have a lot of incentive when it comes to housing. So companies are given housing at half price, half the market price, because Iskandar is just a really big, ambitious development, and there's a lot of building that's completed, but no one is really staying there. So yeah, so we have a lot of like I would say class A office buildings, class A condominiums, and part of this is the subsidy that the government give to companies to attract them, and of course for some companies they also are eligible for 0% tax for 10 years or something. There's a scheme. So there's something that you can look at. But there's a lot of opportunities in Malaysia. And I believe there will be more people moving to Malaysia. So if you want to look at job opportunities, like you can also reach out to me and I can reach out to our members in the association. And perhaps, we can help you do some connection.
Yes, very interesting, very interesting. So let's say a global community, when they think that they want to do investment from North America, from Europe, and they do now more focus on Asia Pacific. What's the key reason that they will come to Malaysia and they will invest in Malaysian ecosystem? What your observation as you have international experience?
I believe that Southeast Asia is a fast growing area, and it's also ready for in terms of like just the general education level, literacy levels. It's yeah, it's an area where I believe the time is ready. I mean, of course, there's other regions like Africa, which I believe would be a really great place, but it probably get to that high growth period, maybe in 5 or 10 years from now. But right now, Southeast Asia is really exciting, and in order to access the Southeast Asia market, you also need a country where the people are quite multicultural, quite skilled, highly skilled, and converse in many languages. So Malaysia is such a country where we have, of course, people from all nationalities from all over the world. We're quite used to the multiculturalism. Um, the government is considered quite how do you say well, we have quite good infrastructure in terms of like roads and everything, and we also have a quite a mature government structure. So and we are quite stable compared to other countries in Southeast Asia, and more importantly is that it's a great place. I mean, you have like beach, you have the hills, you have so many things to do in this country, and yet it doesn't cost that much. So if for foreigners out there, I believe because the travel hub is more like Singapore or Bangkok, so people tend to overlook Malaysia. So I think Malaysia can offer a lot of value in that sense.
Mhm. No, this is very important. Yes, Malaysia actually can add many values, and with a multicultural experience, people can learn a lot from Malaysia. Beside that, I just want to know, like, in present pandemic situation, Malaysia actually doing a very good job in COVID-19 period, and this is also a very good example for global arena. So, can you share, as a Malaysian people, can you share some insight? For our international guest, like what's going on in this COVID-19 period and how actually Malaysia make it so perfect and manage the COVID-19 situation very effectively.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with our the health director. That man is really doing a good job.
Yes.
But more than anything, I believe that it's the health, of course, the health ministry all the nurses, all the health workers, they did a fantastic job. I mean, it's not easy to keep everything under check. And when COVID happened, there was a lot of collaboration. So I started seeing like requests for, for example, masks, which we didn't have. It was in shortage at the time. And someone would post to our group, right? And and they said we like this thing, and someone said like, well, how about we have a 3D printer, so can you send us what we need, and we produce this. So they actually had it made from the 3D printer. So that was a sign of collaboration, and also a sign of like innovation that happens during the COVID period. So yeah, everyone was really helpful, and also I don't really like the word obedience, but I would say like a lot of people were more collaborative, were more cooperative in the sense that they actually follow what the government says. Not
Mhm.
everyone, not everyone, of course, but I think I sense that part was a bit better, and I believe the last part has to do with the research and development, right? So there was a lot of research and development done locally, and we were taking some additional steps to ensure that these things don't spread. Because at that time, I believe in the early days, especially, there was a lot of how to say theories flying around, And for example, in Singapore, I believe the government say you do not need masks, and then later they U-turn and say you actually need masks. And there was a
Mhm.
lot of finger pointing, and you expect that in a crisis anyway, like so in that sense, I believe they've done quite well because whatever instructions they've given is actually based on their own research in the court, and they actually feel there's some basis, to this thing, and they will issue it out. And we were doing other stuff like, for example, some of the patients who were recovered, they actually took the plasma from the blood for injection to other patients. So this is, I believe, is not a very popular approach or not a very well-known approach around the world. I'm not sure. I'm not a medical person, but yeah, that actually helped a lot, I think. And in terms of like coordination with the military, with the police, to keep everything under control, and also like the undocumented migrants. That's a huge problem because they represent something like 10% of Malaysian population. So in order to coordinate that part as well, it's not easy because you're dealing with people who's afraid that they'll be caught, and something terrible will be done to them, and you're dealing with like a language and cultural barrier as well. So I believe they've done a really good job when it came to that. So overall, the other thing, unintentional thing that happened actually during the lockdown was that a lot of illegal activities were stopped. So that was really interesting, yeah, because I believe when all the activities were stopped, I think law enforcement had this space and room, to actually clear up some of the issues. So that was the other interesting thing that happened in
Mhm.
Malaysia. But
Yes.
overall, it's not without cost. I mean, there's no country's response can be perfect. I think the main reason is because every country is different. All our cultures are different. Our understanding is different. Everything is different. So with what they had, with the challenge that they had, I believe they've done a really good job. But of course, if a country that supposedly had a higher case didn't really do a good job by looking at the figures, I don't think it's really fair to judge them as well because they're just different, And yeah, so this is what I think.
Yes. No, more interesting thing I saw that Malaysia, what you say, you do not want to use obedient but collaborative. Yes, Malaysian people actually very much collaborative. I saw that
Mm,
when they go everywhere, they go, they are very disciplined. They follow law, rules, and regulation. They're wearing mask. That is the things always I said. Even I'm come from abroad, I said that Malaysian people is very like they are very positive, they are very peaceful. People can find a very good peace in Malaysia because of their local community is very good. They do not want to go too much of arrogant or too much of negative things. This is very beautiful things of Malaysia.
thank
Beside
you.
that, as you are a very good creative thinker, I want to know like what will happen, what do you think next 2 3 years, especially in the business arena, what will be the next strategy we have to take for surviving the business strategy. And most important thing is that how do you think what will happen with globalization?
Well, first off, I'll say globalization. I think, unfortunately, I think we're in a period of protectionism. So countries are, it's tit for that. Tap, you place duties, anti-dumping duties on somebody, and they do the same to you. Because that's the way international relations work. It's reciprocal. If you open your door to me, I'll open my door to you. But if you shut your door, I will shut my door. So it's a very worrying trend. And even before we had COVID, we already had this quite an idea that the current model is not sustainable. I think, and of course, we have the influence of technology, where you have fantastic technology like 3D printing that can actually contribute in moving the manufacturing base away from China, for example. Yeah, and possibly we'll see the rise of very enclosed regional economies. So in that sense, I believe that trend is still there, if not accelerated. In terms of local economy in Malaysia, so we are middle income um, developing country, and we have of course oil and gas industry, which will still stay, and we have plantations. Um, Not so much in terms of mining, but we have rubber plantations. We have oil palm, and we also have a service industry. Not as big as Singapore, but we do have a service industry, and we do have tourism, etc. So it's quite diverse. So I'll say that the service industry definitely is very challenging going forward because of COVID, and it's not only in Malaysia; it's all around the world. But for the economy in general, right now, what's happening is the government is printing a lot of money. They're increasing the money supply, and they are giving aids, they're giving loans, and there are even of course, the last 6 months, sorry, the last few 4 months, we have something called a moratorium. So if you have a bank loan for a mortgage or a bank loan for a car, you don't have to pay during this period. But of course, the interest will still be chargeable on your mortgage. So all that has alleviated some of the pressure, but not for everybody. Now that is going to end around November, I believe. And in November, there's an option for extension. So what's happening now is that the real economy has crashed, and it's very difficult to do any business that actually generates cash, and the impact is quite strong. I'm not talking about like GDP figures that the government give out. I'm talking about real world business that we see out here. So, for example, my wife is doing after school tuition class, and in her group, all the license, about 15% of them has closed down. And also restaurants are closing down because a lot of restaurant workers, they're from outside Malaysia, they're foreigners, and a lot of foreigners have returned. And the thing is, yeah, you may want to hire locals, but you need people with skills. And these are people coming in not only you know as what people see is the cheap labor, but they also come with skills that you need. You cannot just make someone a chef in 2 weeks. So it's a huge disruption. Even professions that I believe that will not be affected. So, for example, clinics. I thought it was a safe business, but unfortunately, a lot of clinics are closing down as well. And there's this big shift, right, in terms of like how everyone wants to do things, right? So a lot of for example, real estate market is not good right now. Obviously, there's a lot of auction. This kind of data you don't really see out in the newspaper, but there's a lot of auction. People giving up houses, and they're giving up just in time for the moratorium that's coming up. Because once the moratorium lifts, if they cannot pay the bank loan, then they probably have to pursue bankruptcy. And there's a lot of people trying to adapt, right? So some people who's doing online course, if they're doing after school class, they'll try to convert to online course. But there's a problem with online in terms of not only in terms of like the quality of engagement that you get, but also in terms of the willingness of the participant to pay money for it. That's a big issue. It's a very big issue. Of course, tourism, hotels is dead. A lot of hotels are being sold. I believe there's at least four or five major like five-star hotel that's already closing down. They cannot operate anymore. And of course, there's no conference business, which is also MICE conference exhibitions. All that is dead as well. Well, yeah, it's quite worrying, man. It's really worrying. Now, the I heard a figure somewhere that the government is losing $2 billion a day, and I think that and yet at the same time we look at the stock market, and that's where it really gets surprising, right? Because the stock market in US has never been better, and the same in Malaysia, right? So people took all that money that they have left over because they're not paying the house loan, the car loan, but they're not working as well. So they take that money and they put it in the stock because they think they can make money for it, right? But but it's not fair to exclude crypto as well. So crypto Bitcoin has gone up as well because people have nothing to do but invest. But it's not going to last very long because once the report comes out, the quarterly report comes out, and it may have already come out for some companies. People are going to start to realize that a lot of companies they're just trying to survive, and I think you may be able to financially engineer your report, but you can't do it for long. So the next quarters are going to get progressively worse, and it's going to be especially bad for the government because if the largest companies in Malaysia are not making money, they're not going to pay much income tax. And if they're not going to pay income tax, I don't know how. I don't know how in the world that we can ever sustain because in terms of spending, in their attempt to stimulate the economy, they're already giving out money, lending out money, right? And they're restructuring, right, just to keep the bankruptcy figures down. But once the um, income tax figures comes in at the end of the year, that's when it will really hit because then they'll realize that look, it's not 5% or 10% deficit. It could be 20, 30, 40% deficit. And what are you going to do then? So this the question that not only Malaysia asks, but I believe this is a question that a lot of countries have to ask themselves. So yeah, so going back to what I said earlier, um, there may not be a really quick solution or even a real solution at all, right? Because all our central bank is doing right now is printing more money, and they can do that to kingdom come. But we have seen that in past periods of the world, that when you have a fiat system, eventually it fails and is replaced by a system that's based on gold again. But again, the economy based on gold is it grows too slow, right? So that's an issue as well. And again, it reverts back to an inflationary fiat currency model. So it'll be really interesting if you're an economist, but certainly within our lifetime now, we will see a lot of interesting things happen. Hopefully in a good way, but perhaps yeah, in not such a good way as well. So this is what I'm afraid of. I think the next 10 years, even though of all this technology, all this innovation, people are getting smarter than ever in a way. Unless you're like I don't know some of the extreme groups, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of forces at work. I hope it turns out for the better, and I think this is why more than ever we need to, have what we're doing here. Just sharing ideas online, getting different people to talk. But more than anything, is to connect those people who wants to make a change and try to make the world a better place.
Yes, yes. This is very interesting and detailed discussion about the Malaysian economy, specifically Asia Pacific economy. Besides that, I just want to know when any kind of challenging environment come, that time actually those who are productive, those who are innovative, they invent more technology, they invent more solutions. What's your perception? What do you think? What will happen this innovative industry? uh, how do you want to share your experience because you are running a big community, so how do you think?
I think the greatest challenge of innovation is actually, I mean, people say it's creating the innovation. I used to think that that was the problem, but now I think differently. I think adoption is the problem. I think getting people to understand is the problem, and there's a huge gap between those who create technology and those who ultimately lives they want to affect, right? Because if I'm a technologist, I don't sometimes don't really think through, how a normal person is going to see it, and a lot of times, a lot of the usage is quite unintended, and this is the biggest problem. So if you're someone who can connect both worlds, understand technology, but also understand how it can be applied in the world, I mean, you can make a lot of money. There's a lot of value you can add in this sector, and this is where I see it going. Um, and of course, yeah, I mean, though there's also this so-called gap between those who are educated, those who have access to technology, who can have the time to keep up, and those who are left behind, who doesn't understand technology, etc. So I like to see that gap close as well. And but still, yeah, adoption of technology is the main challenge. I think creation is not an issue.
Yes, yes. This is very interesting discussions, and we get a very good guideline from blockchain technology, from Islamic finance, even local Malaysians and Singapore ecosystems, and the most important thing that everybody think Asia Pacific will be the next economic hub. It will be the next hub where they can make more business. People will be more progressive, and people will be more innovative and creative. And I just want to know, beside everything, like what your advice for young community when they build up different kind of startup, when they are trying to find out different solutions, even government try to engage with more, invest in more money on this startup and ecosystems. What should they do for developing more startup and developing more solution?
Okay. So startup in general, I believe, is a very challenging time for them now because a lot of VCs they're not actively investing at this point of time because technically startups are considered high risk. So that's a concern. But there are still opportunities out there. So for example, in the blockchain world, we have a lot of blockchain projects that basically floats the token and they obtain valuations of tens of millions, hundreds of billions, even billions of dollars. So these blockchain projects they still have grants. So I would advise young entrepreneur startups to try to look at this area because this is an area where the funding is still available. And if we look at the market, the crypto market right now, I believe Bitcoin is already past a downward trend. It's a really technical thing, but I'll just say like it's already popped out of a downward turn. So the next year or so is very positive for cryptocurrencies in general, and we expect the same thing to happen, but in a different way. In the sense that this time we really have the products, we really have the technology, we really have the projects, and we're really innovating. As in, it's no longer I give you some tokens for a project that's just a piece of paper. Once you give me the money, I'll try to build it. But it's more like um, real business. So, for example, decentralized exchange. So, decentralized exchange is something that generates money because they are in the business of exchange. And for example, decentralized finance, when they're borrowing and lending, this protocol, the DeFi app, actually makes a margin off it. So it is a business in itself. So going forward, if there's I mean, I know a lot of startups are bootstrapping. It's not easy to be a startup founder, okay? And technology moves as fast as well, right? So you need to do a lot of pivots along the way. So that part I understand as well. But I will highly encourage them to look at blockchain. They don't necessarily need to, be a blockchain project, but they can be a blockchain-enabled project, or even in the future. Now it's becoming increasingly popular that you actually don't have to be a blockchain project. They will use the platform as a funding, but in some way you have to utilize the token to increase the reach of the token economy. Yeah. So that would be my advice. And I say this because I can see it. I also have a startup. I also went through tried to get government grants, and I can tell you it's not easy. It comes with a lot of conditions, and most of the time, if you're bootstrapping, you just wasting your time. Yeah, 1 year, 2 year, and there's so many uncertainty. Yeah? So it's definitely not an easy road. So the smart approach to engaging with blockchain projects that actually have grants is it's it'd be a really good idea if you can talk to whoever's in charge of the funds and ask them what they're looking for. Okay, and based on what they're looking for and the kind of expectation in terms of like the maturity of the code, then you can come back to them with something that they may like, and they may tell you like, okay, you don't have it today, but if you develop this, then definitely you're gonna get the grant. 3 months or 6 months down the line. So that's one of the solutions to bridge this gap. But there is money out there, and I see this pool of money is just gonna grow with the renewed interest in crypto and blockchain. So do look into it. If you need assistance, come to our community, and I'll be more than willing to help you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Aaron Ting, for your valuable discussion. And specifically, we get a very good insight from Malaysia and from Singapore, especially blockchain technology, startup, Islamic finance, and most importantly, Malaysian ecosystem. Thank you for your valuable time, and it's a very nice discussion. Definitely, in the future, we arrange a lot of policy discussions, group discussions, and debatings. Many interesting thing, World Talent Economy forums we are trying to develop. So hopefully, we're gonna invite you, and by this way, we will grow together, and we can develop a knowledgeable and valuable community. Thank you for your time and everything.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.